So welcome back guys to day 17. Yesterday was day 16 and I say that it's day 15. I don't know what I'm thinking, but it's day 17 now, okay? And we'll start learning. I will try to learn more than one playlist because every day I just learn one things and one thing only. Today, let's aim for like two minimum, okay? Two minimum. And if I can go to three, I'll go to three. So today we'll go to pages. And the next one is animation. I'm really excited for animations. So let's continue. Wait, did I set up my things right? Oh yeah, I already set up my things right. Okay, let's go. Like always, guys, I will not be talking much because when I'm learning, I'll not be talking much because I need to focus. But if I wanna talk about something or I wanna clarify some things, I'll like talk like always.
Damn.
Damn.
Damn. This obby looks pretty
Okay.
difficult. I'm gonna see if I can do it. No. Yes, I did it. Oh, it looks like I got a badge for it too. Yeah, boy. I did the obby. I can now flex to my friend about this. Uh, Nah, I am not doing that. Do you see how long that goes? I am done here. I can't believe this. All right, let's think about what we just saw for a minute. When I finished this obby, now this was a very difficult obby, I will admit that. Once I ended up finishing this obby, then I touched this part, and when I touched this part, it showed this little notification down here on the bottom right of my screen showing that I got a new badge. Now, if you're unfamiliar with badges, essentially they are achievements that you can obtain in a Roblox game if the developer decides to add them. And when you obtain these badges, they can appear on your profile to show that you have earned these badges within a specific game on Roblox. So that's what I'm going to be showing you how to do inside of this video. I'm going to be showing you the scripting aspect of implementing these badges in your Roblox game. So with that being said, let's go straight into implementing badges inside of Roblox Studio. Now that we understand it, let's start implementing badges in our Roblox game. But before we can do that, we need to make sure that we are in Roblox Studio on a published game. So we can't be working on this.
Okay, publish game again. So I cannot do it here. I need to do it on the other one, this one.
On a local file because badges can only be created on a published Roblox game. And if you don't remember how to do that, we basically just go to the top left, hit file, and then we hit publish to Roblox as, and then if you need to create a new place or overwrite an already existing one, then you can do that. But I'm already in a published place, so I don't need to do that. So once you have that taken care of, next what we're going to do is start creating our badges for our game. One place
Wait. I will just like make a new one because there is already too much thing here, I think. For day 17.
that we can create these badges is within our game settings. So if we go to home and then click on game settings, if we go down to monetization, then there should be a badges section inside of here. Ignore this badge that's over here. But basically, we can create a new badge clicking this create button next to the badges text. So if we click on this, then what should happen is that we should be redirected to our creator dashboard. But in order to create our badges, we need to locate our game inside of our creator dashboard. So in this case, my game is called Data Source S1. So in order to create a badge, we need to click on the three dots that are on the top right, and then click on Create Badge. So now we're on this creating a badge page where we can upload an image for a badge, we can make a name for it, and a description. Now, if we are creating a badge, we need an image, and we also need a name for it. The description is optional, and there is a note down here saying that the first 5 badges that are created are free, but afterwards, you have to pay 100 Robux for any additional badges. If you decide to create more than 5 badges in your game. But for the first 5, luckily they're free to add. So you can add whatever image you want as long as the format is correct with one of these 4. It doesn't really matter what you do in this case, so I'm just going to pick this one. And then we can change the name of it to, let's say, test badge 1. And then you can add in a description as well. We can just say something like, this is the test badge 1. Okay, so now that we have all this information filled out, let's hit create badge. So what should happen is within our badges section in our game, our badge has been uploaded, but our image is currently being under moderation right now. So now that we have our badge, we can go back into Roblox Studio and we can hit the refresh button to see our badge displayed on our badges category. So we have our badge here, and that is how you create badges in Roblox Studio. Now that we have the badge, let's start scripting it. And the first thing we're going to do is award this badge to the player if they all of a sudden decide to start joining into the game. We're going to be doing that by inserting a script inside of server script service. So set the plus sign, let's insert a script. Now inside of our script, we're going to need access to the badge service that will allow us to award
Oh, that's sort of case. Okay.
our badge to the player. So we're going to make reference to badge service by saying local badge service equals game colon get service badge service. Now here's something important to know about.
That's sort of case.
How do we know which badge we're trying to give to the player? So whenever we're creating badges, so whenever we're working with badges, in order to know which badge is associated with what, we have to refer to its badge ID. And if you want to know where the badge ID of our newly created badge is, we're going to go back to our game, hit game settings, go to monetization, and with our badge, we're going to hit the three dots that are to the right of it, and we're going to click this button that says copy ID to clipboard. So if you remember how assets work in Roblox, basically the way you distinguish one asset from another one is by its asset ID. But for badges, they have their own set of IDs independent from other assets on Roblox. So it basically works the same way here. So we're just going to hit copy ID to clipboard. We're going to close out of this and then go back to our script. So let's make a variable to know that this is going to be our badge ID. So we're going to say local badge ID equals and then hit and then right click paste. So this is our badge ID right here, and it's this very big number right here. But now that we have our badge ID, let's make it so that we can award this badge to the player when they join the game for the first time. So what we're going to do is drop two lines and then make a player added event. So we're going to say game.players.player added connect function, open close parentheses, passing in the player argument. And so now we're going to immediately award the badge to the player since they joined into the game. So we're going to say badge service colon award, and this function takes in two arguments. So the first one is going to be the user ID, and the second one is going to be the badge
Mm,
ID, which we've displayed up here in this variable. So the first argument is going to be the player. Function takes in two arguments. So the first one is going to be the user ID, and the second one is going to be the badge ID, which we've displayed up here in this variable. So the first argument is going to be the player.user ID, and then the second one is going to be the badge ID. So this is a very basic implementation of awarding badges to the player when they join into the game. Let's also add a task.wait before awarding a badge, just so that we can give the server enough time for the player to join into the game so that we can see our badge being awarded on the bottom right. So let's now join into the game and see our result. All right, so I'm in the game, and after about a few seconds, it should display right there saying that I awarded on the bottom right. So let's now join into the game and see our result. All right, so I'm in the game, and after about a few seconds, it should display right there saying that I have been awarded the test badge 1 because we joined into the game and we told badge service to server enough time for the player to join into the game so that we can see
okay.
our badge being awarded on the bottom right. So let's now join into the game and see our result. All right, so I'm in the game, and after about a few seconds, it should display right there saying that I have been awarded the test badge 1.
Mm.
because we joined into the game and we told badge service to award the badge to our player. So that is basically how you award badges to the player in the most bare bone basic way. So since we've been awarded the badge, we now have it. But according to our script, if we join back into the game, then badge service will still, then Roblox will still attempt to give the badge to our player despite us having the badge already. We obviously don't want this to happen if we've already obtained the badge. So what we need to do is make a check to see if the player already has the badge. And what we're going to do is use a function that Roblox has provided for us called user has badge async. So the way this is going to work is we're basically going to write a variable by saying local has badge equals, and then what we're going to do is say badge service user has badge async. And this also takes into arguments that are basically the same as down here. The first one is going to be the user ID, and the second one is going to be the badge ID. So we're going to say player does have that, but the player does not have printout saying player.name, and we can say already has the test badge. And so this is basically how our script is looking now when it comes to checking whether the player has the badge or not. So let's go and hit play again. So now what should happen is we already have the badge. So on the output, it should say that the player already has the test badge, as you can see down here. It's not going to award it to us because we already have it. So there's another thing we can do with badges, and that's obtaining information about a specific badge if we need it in our Roblox game. So right now I'm back in the Creator Hub, and I'm checking the overview of the badge that we just created. So we have things like our name, the image, the description, and whether you can obtain this badge or not. With these 4 bits of information, we can actually retrieve this information in Roblox Studio if we need it within the game specifically. So with this badge or not. Right now I'm back in the Creator Hub, and I'm checking the overview of the badge that we just created. So we have things like our name, the image, the description, and whether you can obtain this badge or not. With these 4 bits of information, we can actually retrieve this information in Roblox Studio if we need it within the game specifically. So with what I'm about to show you, we're able to access the name of the badge, the description of the badge, whether you can obtain it or not, and the ID of the image. So not the ID of the badge, but the ID of the image for the badge. So with that being said, let's go back into Studio and implement this. So now that we're here, we're going to use a method that will give us a table full of the information that we need called getBadgeInfoAsync. So this is what it's going to look like. We're going to make another variable by saying local badge info equals badge service getBadgeInfoAsync. And the only argument that this needs is the badge ID, which we already have as a variable. So we're going to say badge ID, and this is going to return a table full of information that we're going to use inside Roblox Studio. So if we, let's say, decided to loop through all the values inside of our badge info variable, so let's just do this really quick. See the output, what should be down there is, okay, so we have true, and then this massive number, and then we have the name of our badge, and then we have the description of the badge. So you can kind of get what sort of information is in here because I explained this earlier. We have the badge name, we have the badge description, we have whether this is active or not, and we have the ID of the image itself. So if we want to be more specific about getting which information, we can use the properties that badge info has just by saying print badge info.name. So that is basically fetching the name of the badge, and then we have badge info.description, which gives us the description obviously, and we have badge info.isEnabled, which is the third property that tells us whether you can actually obtain this badge. And then finally, the last one is called icon image ID. So these are the 4 properties that badge info has for us to use in a Roblox game in case we do need this information from the badge itself. So that is another neat thing we can do with these badges in our game. Okay, so we basically went over everything badge service has to offer, but if I'm gonna be honest, we did a pretty sloppy job with adding all of these different features that badge service has to offer. It works, but it is pretty insecure with the way we've been trying to implement these features in Roblox Studio. So what we're going to do is add p-calls to our scripts. So if you've been following along with my advanced scripting series, you might be familiar with p-calls because I explained how to use them when we're working with data stores. And the same principle basically applies here with badge service because we're using functions that could be interrupted by the network when we're trying to do something. And there is a very high possibility that it might not go through with what we're trying to do, whether that be trying to figure out whether the player has a badge or whether we were able to award the badge properly or whether we were able to get information about a badge specifically. If we aren't certain about whether this is going to go through or not, we need to know why it doesn't go through. So that's why we need to use p-calls. But here's another thing. I haven't really explained the syntax of p-calls and the different ways you can write p-calls when using this. You still might be confused about why a p-call is structured the way it is. So there's 2 ways of writing p-calls, and the reason I'm explaining this is because we're going to be using the second way of writing p-calls that I haven't showed you. Yeah. So before we implement that, I want to show you how this works. So there's 2 ways of writing p-calls, and I've showed you how to do the first one if you've been following my advanced scripting tutorial series, because I did this when I was teaching you how to do data stores. But it looks something along the lines of this. So if I have our success variable like this with our error message right here, this is basically going to tell us that if the p-call fails, then we're going to print this message, but if it was successful, then we're going to know with Boolean value. We're going to set this equal to p-call function open close parentheses enter. So this has been the structure of our p-call, but now you might think, why is it like this? What's the significance of this syntax structure? So I kind of want you to think of it like this. If I, let's say, deleted these lines that are empty right here, this is how you define a function. So you have the function keyword with the open and close parentheses, and then you end it with an end statement. And then between here is the body of code. So this is how you create a new function. And this is basically one argument in this p call. But then everything up until this point is any external argument that's going to be passed into these parameters that are inside this function that you just created. What I'm talking about is, let's say I had a parameter here called number1. If I wanted to pass in a number that associates with this parameter right here, I'm going to pass it in after this function call right here. So this can be whatever number I want. It can be 100. So the first argument is going to be the function. The second one is going to be any associated arguments that are going to be passed into these
Equal, equal.
parameters right here. And so if I basically drop a line down here with a function, this is basically what we had before with our p call, but this time we're adding in a parameter with an argument associated with it. And this is how you structure the first p call. So if I, let's say, printed number1, then what's going to happen is if I hit run inside of Roblox, then in the output, it should print the number 100 because we were successfully able to know whether we were able to have this go through successfully or not. And so this is one way of structuring p calls, and I hope that made sense to you. Okay, now I'm going to show you the second way of writing a p call. So this one takes in two required functions on top of any additional arguments that you want to put. So for our first example, we only put in one required argument, which was our function that we just created. But this time, if we, let's say, wanted to use a method from a specific class that Roblox has to offer, which in this case, we're going to be using a method from badge service. We're going to need to specify which service we're trying to use and which method from that service we're trying to use. So this is what it's going to look like. We're going to have our same signature, which is going to be local success error message. We're going to set this equal to p call again, but this time, this is going to take in two parameters. So the first one is going to be the method of the class that we're trying to use, rather than our own function that we're trying to create. So we're trying to use an existing function. We're going to say badge service colon award badge, let's say in this case. We're not going to put in any open close parentheses. We're just going to have it like this. And then our second argument is going to be the instance, also known as the service itself, that we're going to pass in. So it's going to just be badge service. We're going to pass in badge service, and then the rest are just additional colon award badge, let's say in this case. We're not going to put in any open close parentheses. We're just going to have it like this. And then our second argument is going to be the instance, also known as the service itself, that we're going to pass in. So it's going to just be badge service. We're going to pass in badge service. And then the rest are just additional arguments that we need to pass in. But in this case, we actually do need to pass in two arguments because we're trying to pass them into our award badge method, which if you remember, award badge takes in two arguments, which the first one is the user ID and the second one is the badge ID. So in this case, we have to pass in our two parameters, which is going to be the player.user ID. But the thing is, we're not inside of our player add event, so we're actually going to copy this and we're going to paste this down here. So that's going to take in our first argument. The second one is going to be the badge ID. Because when we call award badge, we need to pass in the two arguments that need to be inside of award badge, which the first one's going to be the user ID and the second one's going to be the badge ID. And the second argument is just going to be the instance of the method that we're trying to use. Okay, so instead of using a colon, we're actually going to use a dot because award badge, in this case, we're just trying to get the method of the service. We're not trying to call it, because if we were to try and call it, we would use the colon with the open close parentheses like this. But we're not going to do it like this. We just need the method itself. So that's why we're going to use a dot. And this is essentially, we would use the colon with the, actually going to use a dot because the user ID and the second one is going to be the badge ID. And the second argument is just going to be the instance of the method that we're trying to use. Okay, so instead of using a colon, we're actually going to use a dot because award badge, in this case, we're just trying to get the method of the service. We're not trying to call it, because if we were to try and call it, we would use the colon with the open close parentheses like this. But we're not going to do it like this. We just need the method itself. So that's why we're going to use a dot. And this is essentially the second way of how you write p calls. And I hope this analogy made sense to you. Okay, now let's go back and fix our already existing script to add p calls to make it more safe. So I'm going to block out this comment that I have down here. And what we're going to do is copy what we had for our award badge p call. And we're going to put this up here. So we're going to paste it over here. And we should have a success to tell us whether award badge has been successful. And so just to make this a little easier, we're going to comment out everything we've had here up until this point. So let's say this did not go through. Let's check if this was not successful for awarding the badge to the player. Then what we're going to do is print out the error message. So this is a more secure way of awarding the badge to the player, just so that we know that it is possible. Just so that we know that it is possible to get errors when it comes to awarding the badge to the player. So this is how you do it in a more secure way. Okay, but now let's say we wanted to further improve on this by checking whether the player already has the badge or not. So what we're gonna do is say local has badge error message equals
Mm.
success has badge equals p call open close parentheses. What we're going to do is use as badge async, which is not success. Then we're just going to print out some error message saying that that we failed. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is drop down here and say if has badge. So if the player actually does have badge, since user has badge async will return whether the user has badge or not, we're going to take our original p call with awarding badge and we're going to put this inside of our has badge if statement. So already now what we've done is checked if the player has the badge or not in a more successful way, and if they do, then we're going to securely award the badge to them. And finally, we're going to get the badge info in a more secured way. And this is what we're actually going to do to check whether we can actually award this badge or not. So here's what we're gonna do. At the very beginning, we're going to get the badge information. So we're gonna say, and this is what has the badge or not in a more successful way. And if they do, then we're going to securely award the badge to them. And finally, we're going to get the badge info in a more secured way. And this is what we're actually going to do to check whether we can actually award this badge or not. So here's what we're gonna do. At the very beginning, we're going to get the badge information. So we're gonna say local success to check whether this was successful again. But then this time we're gonna say badge info equals p call open close parentheses. We're going to write our p call the second way, just like we've done every other time. So we're gonna say badge service dot get badge info. AD. So that's what we're gonna put down here. So what we're gonna do is we can check whether this was successful or not successful. But in this case, what we're gonna do is check if this was not successful. Then we're gonna say if not success, then we're going to print failed to get badge information. Award the badge to the player. And so now that we have this check for whether we were able to obtain the badge and this check whether the player already has the badge, now we can finally go down here to actually award the badge to the player. Now, here's another thing we can do to make sure that we can actually award the player the badge now that we have our badge info. Is if you remember, we can check whether this badge is enabled. So we can actually make that check down here before we award the badge to the player. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if has badge and our script badge info dot is enabled, then
Why do I need is has badge? Like, to check. So this is true or false. So if already have, oh, it is if has badge. Oh, get match info, I see. Okay. Hell.
We're going to attempt to award the badge to the player. And so finally, we've reached the end of our script.
This should be not has, right? If not.
In the most secure way possible, at least to the way that I see it. So this has basically been adding badges in Roblox Studio, but of course you can experiment around with this and try to add even more badges if you were to loop all these around in a table to try and award specific badges to specific players if you decide to do so. This is generally the way that we script badges in Roblox Studio, and I want you to get into the practice of writing these P calls to make them more secure when you're trying to add them. So that is basically going to be it for badges, and I hope you found this video to be helpful. If you're still confused about P calls, I have another video where I And finally, we're going to get the badge info in a more secured way. And this is what we're actually going to do to check whether we can actually award this badge or not. So here's what we're going to do. At the very beginning, we're going to get the badge information. So we're going to say, and this is what we're actually going to do to check whether we can actually award this badge or not. We're going to say, get badge info async only takes in one argument, which is just the badge ID. So that's what we're going to put down here. So what we're going to do is we can check whether this was successful or not successful. But in this case, what we're going to do is check if this was not successful. Then we're going to say, if not success, then we're going to print failed to get badge information. Okay, and so now that we have this check for whether we weren't able to obtain the badge and this check whether the player already has the badge, now we can finally go down here to actually award the badge to the player. Now, here's another thing we can do to make sure that we can actually award the player the badge now that we have our badge info. These around
Okay, that is a pretty chill episode. Like it's not as hard as the other episode. It's only badges. Like it's very simple. Like this is when the player is edit, right? We can always make it like when the player touch something or when the player like reach some places. But overall, I think it's fine. Like it's pretty chill. Okay, I will rest for a while and then I will continue. See you guys. Hello guys, I'm back. Continue learning.
No, seriously, tell me what I'm looking at right now. Oh my god, this thing is massive. Wait, touch. What am I touching here? No, no, please, make it stop. Make it stop now, please. All right, let's think about what we just saw for a minute. So this thing decided to dance after I pressed this button, which literally makes no sense at all, but I'm just gonna go with it. So it decided to play a little dance animation after I pressed this button, and that actually made me realize that, yeah, animations, they do make up a big part of Roblox, because, I mean, look at me. I'm literally being animated as I walk. I'm being animated as I jump. Animation is just one of those things that are very essential to Roblox, especially when it comes to characters or NPCs, because animations give the players or characters, or even NPCs, that liveliness to them. So in this episode, I'm gonna be showing you how to create an animation and how to add them into your game, so that you know how all this stuff works out. Because creating animations is a very important skill to have when it comes to being a game developer. So that's what we're about to do. But with that being said, let's go straight into implementing animations on Roblox. Now that we understand it, let's start implementing animations inside our game. Now, you're probably thinking right now, where the heck do we even make animations if this is your first time doing it? Roblox has this feature that allows us to create animations using an animation editor to then publish that to Roblox and use that in our own game. So I'm going to give you a basic rundown of how this editor works. But first thing we have to do is that we have to add a rig to our workspace so that we can animate it. And if you don't know what a rig is, it's basically an object that has a skeletal structure where we can manipulate its parts and add animations to them to make it human-like. So if you imagine this NPC right here to have a structure for legs, a structure for a torso, a structure for arms, and a structure for the head, all of those combined make up a rig. And so that's basically what we're going to do here is we're going to be adding our own rig to be able to animate with, because we can't animate with just a part. A part alone isn't going to help us animate our animations. We need a skeletal structure to be able to do this for us. Luckily, Roblox allows us to do that as well. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go on the top, go to Avatar, and we're going to click this button called Rig Builder.
Mhm.
So if we click this, then it gives us a bunch of options to choose a rig that we want to generate. So we can choose an R15 or R6 character, we can choose masculine or feminine body, and we have all these options that are down here. Now you can pick your own avatar to import, or you can pick a block avatar. These are usually my go-to when it comes to generating a rig. So I'm just gonna pick my avatar, but you can also pick block avatar. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so now that we pressed that, Roblox generated a rig for me using my own character, and it added it to the workspace. So we can can take this and we can drag this around however we want. We can go on the right side and open it up, and we can see that everything here basically makes up our player's character if we were to play the game with my accessories and animate script, all the parts that we need, and just things like that. So we have a rig. Now what we need to do is open up the animation editor so that we can start creating animations. So on the top, there should
Yeah, I'm gonna mess a lot with this, okay? I want my character. Please give me my character. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
should be another button called Animation Editor under the animation section. So we're going to press this, and what you should see down here is a new animation editor window. I'm actually going to get rid of my output down here so that we can see it better. But yeah, down here it says select a rig to animate or create a new rig by selecting rig builder under the avatar tab. But since we've already created a rig, we're just going to simply click our rig. And now down here it says create an animation to start. So there currently is no animation for this rig that we just created, so we're gonna have to create a new animation. We're just gonna call this animation test 1, just because why not? So we're gonna hit enter, and now what we should see is this grid down here, while also seeing this animation editor with this timeline. Now, we basically have this timeline down here, and if we click and hold this blue bar, then we can drag this along the timeline from start to finish with the animation that we're creating. There's also some other things like playing the animation or skipping the animation or looping the animation. There's even more customizable options on the right side of the screen. I'm gonna go over some of these in just a little bit. But for right now, what you need to know is that this timeline is very essential when it comes to timely, accurate animations when you're creating them. So if you're not familiar with Roblox rigs, especially R15 rigs, essentially this character right here is comprised of 15 parts. That is the head, the right upper arm, the right lower arm, the right hand, and the same thing on the left side. Then we have the upper torso, the lower torso, and then we have the left upper leg, the left lower leg, and the left foot, and then the same thing on the right side. So what we can do is we can select any of these parts, like let's say the right upper arm, for instance. It's going to give us a rotation indicator to allow us to move this character's arm. So because this is a rig, if we moved, let's say, the upper arm, then it's going to also move the lower arm and the hand as well. And as you can see, when we did this, there's two things that happened. On the bottom left, it shows us on a rig hierarchy that we changed the right upper arm, and we can see it it down here with the position and rotation. We've now changed the rotation to 45 degrees this way on the 0-second timeline. So this is another thing that changed. It gave us this keyframe that shows us that we were able to make a change to the animation at this specific time frame. So let's say we decide to change this time frame to 5, I believe this is milliseconds, but I could be wrong about that. It's basically 5 frames down the line. If we were to, let's say, now change our upper torso, so I'm going to click on the upper torso, and let's say we move it this way, then what's going to happen is we added a new keyframe at 5 seconds. But if we, let's say, decide to move this back this way, you can see that Roblox automatically animates.
Oh, I understand. Understand. You know, understand it now. Okay, but first, let's make our character backflip. How do I do it, man? How do I do this? Can I like rotate the body, the whole body, everything? Hell is this, man? Understand, I do understand. I need to
So let's
I
right,
need
so
to
looking at
think.
change with because this is a rig. If we moved, let's say, the upper arm, then it's going to also move the lower arm and the hand as well. And As you can see, when we did this, there's two things that happened. On the bottom left, it shows us on our rig hierarchy that we changed the right upper arm, and we can see it down here with the position and rotation. We've now changed the rotation to 45 degrees this way on the 0-second timeline. So this is another thing that changed. It gave us this keyframe that shows us that we were able to make a change to the animation at this specific time frame. So let's say we decide to change this time frame to 5, I believe this is milliseconds, but I could be wrong about that. It's basically 5 frames down the line. If we were to, let's say, now change
Scale. Okay. My hand is so small. It's hard to pick. Ooh.
change our upper torso, so I'm going to click on the upper torso, and let's say we move it this way, then what's going to happen is we added a new keyframe at 5 seconds. But if we, let's say, decide to move this back this way, you can see that Roblox automatically animates the rig for you based on the keyframes that you put down on the timeline. So if we started back at 0, it's going to start with my hand going out, with my arm going out this way. But since I added a keyframe to move my upper torso this way when it reaches 5 frames, it's going to, frame by frame, move to the keyframe. And if we, let's say, move this again to 10 seconds, if we wanted to move this arm this way, if for whatever reason, then once again, it's going to start at 0 seconds, and then it's going to move according to the frames in between both keyframes. And now that we do have this, what we can do is we can play the animation that we just created. If we start back at the beginning and then we hit play, then what we can do is preview the animation. So let's hit play. We can see that from when we started to the last keyframe, it played our animation. And if we were to implement this in Roblox Studio, we're going to fire this animation, and then it's going to stop right here and then completely stop the animation. Not freeze it, but it's just going to stop the animation. If we want to, let's say, loop it, then we can press this button to toggle looping animation. So once this is on, if we play this once, then it's just going to keep looping the animation, and this would also be apparent when we implement this in our game. But we're not going to put looping on, so we're just going to turn it back off. Okay, so now that we have our first animation, let's publish this to Roblox. So how we're going to do this is we're going to click these 3 little dots that's next, these 3 little dots on the left side. We're going to click this, and what we're going to do is say publish to Roblox, and it's going to show our pop-up to create this animation. So we're just going to call this test 1, and it's going to be created by me. We don't really have to do much here, except delete local instances. I would recommend checking this on, at least thinking about what this does. I would say you should usually just have this on. I don't really see much of a reason to have this turned off, so that's what we're going to do. So let's hit submit, and now we should have our published animation. So as you know, when you publish an animation on Roblox, it's going to give a customized ID. So this is the ID that we're going to use to implement in Roblox Studio. We're going to copy this, and we're going to hit close, and we're also going to back out of this animation editor now that we have our animation to use. Okay. So we have our animation ID, but how do we add this animation to our game? The first thing that we're going to have to do is create an animation instance with the ID that we just copied, because this is going to be the animation within the game that we're going to use to animate inside of our game. This is basically what it's going to look like. If we, let's say, went onto workspace, hit the plus sign, and then we decide to search up animation, we're going to click animation, and there's basically one property here that we really care about, and that's going to be the animation ID. And obviously, this is going to be the ID that we just copied when we uploaded our animation. So we're just going to right click on this, hit paste, and then that should be the numbered ID right there, and we're going to hit enter. So now that we have our animation here that we just created, let's also rename this to test animation 1, just for the sake of it. We have our animation, but how do we make it so that our character will be playing this animation? What we can do is we can add a local script inside of our character to be able to play this animation after a specific number of seconds, so that we can see that it's working properly. What we can do is add a local script inside of starter character scripts. This is usually where I would be using my animations. It would be inside of the character, and ideally the starter character scripts. So we're going to hit the plus sign, and we're going to add a local script. And we're also going to take our animation, and we're going to put this right inside of our local script so that we have easy access to it. So What we're going to do is make reference to our animation by saying local animation equals script, and we're also going to throw it in a wait for child statement as well. So that the script has enough time to look for it. So it's going to be test animation 1. So this is going to be our animation script. Now, in order to activate this animation, we're going to need access to our character's humanoid because the humanoid is what makes our character lifelike, human-like, and those sorts of things. So what we're going to do is make reference to our character. And as you know, anything that's contained in starter character scripts is going to be a direct child of our character. So what we're going to do is make reference to our character. And as you know, anything that's contained in starter character scripts is going to be a direct child of our character. So our character simply is just going to be the parent. So we're just going to say local character equals script dot parent. And then through that, we're going to our character and humanoid, look for it. So it's going to be test animation 1. So this is going to be our animation script. Now, in order to activate this animation, we're going to need access to our character's humanoid because the humanoid is what makes our character lifelike, human-like, and those sorts of things. So what we're going to do is make reference to our character. And as you know, anything that's contained in starter character scripts is going to be a direct child of our character. So our character simply is just going to be the parent. So we're just going to say local character equals script dot parent. And then through that, we're going to find the humanoid of that character. So we're going to say local humanoid equals character wait for child. Humanoid. So we have access to our character's humanoid now. Now, here's the weird thing about this. So we actually can't use this animation directly for the character that we're trying to animate. What we have to do is convert this animation to an animation track. And this is essentially the animation that contains everything that we need in order to play back an animation and use it whenever we want. Because if you see our animation right here, the only thing it has is animation ID. It doesn't have any special properties that allow us to configure, run, or even stop or do anything with this animation that we have. It has no properties, which is why we have to convert this animation to what's called an animation track instance that allows us to do all these things. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna say local animation track equals humanoid. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our humanoid and we're going to load in our animation that's going to be embedded within the humanoid. So we're gonna say humanoid colon load animation, open and close parentheses, and then we're gonna throw in our animation inside of our arguments here. So now we have an animation track, and this is embedded directly into our character's humanoid. Well, our player's humanoid when we go into the game. Okay, so now that we have our animation track, we can play our animation using the play method in the animation track. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna wait a few seconds so that our character can load into the game before we play the animation. So we're gonna say task.wait 5 seconds, and then we're simply just gonna say animation track colon play open and close parentheses. That's it. That's all we have to do. So now if we go into the game, hit test and hit play, once we're in the game, after about a couple seconds, it should play the animation on its own. All right, so I'm into the game after a set amount of time. Then we should see that the animation did play, but it was very subtle because the animation lasts like 6 milliseconds or something. And another thing was that it didn't fully play the animation because it was being overridden by our idle animation. Because it's quite confusing. We played the animation, but it wasn't what we animated it to be. It barely lifted our arm and it barely moved our character. Why is that the case? I'm going to show you once we move back into the animation editor. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the animation editor and use our rig. I'm going to move this down here so that we have a good view of it. So what happened when we played the animation? It certainly did not do this, that's for sure. It sort of moved the arms up and it moved our character's torso to the right side, just slightly. But why did it do that? Why is it not doing this? I want you to understand the concept of what's known as animation priority. And so when our character is playing the game, our character is constantly playing an animation, which, as you know, it's the idle animation. If we have multiple animations playing at the same time, like the idle animation plus this animation that we're trying to play, then it's going to try to prioritize one animation over the other. And if both of them are in the same priority, then it's going to be some weird mixture of the two. So what we have to do is we have to add more priority to our animation over our idle animation. And the way we change our animation priority is by going on the left side here, clicking on the three dots, and there should be an option that says set animation priority. So these are basically all the options for our animation priority. And just to put things into perspective, core is like the least priority option. As you can see down here, there's idle, which is basically our idle animation. So core is underneath idle. What we want is to put this above idle. And usually the best place to do this is in action, because action has more priority over idle, but also has more priority over movement. Let's say if our character was moving, since we can say this is basically an action. So instead of core, we're going to set this to action. So now that we've done that, there isn't any visible change to this thing, but we've now added more priority to this animation. And in order to see our change, what we have to do is publish this game to Roblox again. So we're going to hit the three dots, we're going to hit publish to Roblox, and we're going to overwrite an existing asset, which is going to be our test one right here. So we're going to hit submit, and now our animation should be updated. Our ID is still the same, so we don't have to worry about that. But let's now go into the game and see what happens with our animation now that we've updated our animation priority. Okay, and as you can see, we were able to see that our character was fully able to move to the right, and we were also able to wave our hand up fully, because it completely overrode our idle animation until this animation stopped. So that's an interesting thing to know about when it comes to animation priority when you're creating your animations. Okay, but now, there's more animation properties that I want to quickly go over when it comes to the animation editor and also what we can do through script. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to extend our duration of these keyframes so that it can appear slower, so that we can actually see the animation happen. So I'm just going to move these
How to make this like bigger? I don't know, man.
along so that once we play the animation, then we should be able to see it better. So yeah, now we have like a better glimpse of how this animation looks, because it's closer to being a full second rather than stopping like halfway through or something like that. I'm also going to turn on looping so that when we play it once, we can constantly see it playing from start to finish, and then start to finish, and then start to finish, and then you get the idea. So let's now publish this back to Roblox by overwriting our already existing animation. So we're going to go to test one, submit, and then there we go. So now So now I'm going to introduce you to some more properties with animation track that we can use to further continue animating, to further continue using our animation. So I want to introduce you to some notable properties or methods that people may or may not be confused about. So I don't want this to be an in-depth guide to scripting animations on Roblox. If you want to experiment with this stuff yourself, you can go on the Roblox Developer Hub. I'll also put a link to that in the description to just see what there is that animation track has to offer that you can try yourself. But one of those things that people may be tripped up about is this method called adjust speed. So we have our animation playing that is playing at normal speed that lasts for 0.9 seconds. But if we want to adjust the speed to be something faster, we can add a multiplier to the normal speed of our animation track. So by default, the animation speed is 1. But if we want it to be, let's say, twice the speed, then we're going to put down 2 as our speed that we want to adjust the animation to. So it's going to look something like this. We're going to say animation track adjust speed, and then in parentheses we're going to put 0. Let's say 2, so that it's very slow whenever we decide to play the animation once we're in the game. So let's see what happens if we go into the game and hit play. All right, and as you can see, the animation is playing very slowly until it reaches the end and then it loops back to the beginning. So this seems to basically work as expected. However, there is something that I do want you to keep in mind when it comes to adjusting the speed. You have to be very careful about using adjust speed when it comes to your animations that you're trying to change. So we have adjust speed set equal to 0.2 after we play the animation track. But let's see what happens if we take adjust speed and place it before playing the animation. Let's go into the game and see what happens now when we do that. What ends up happening is adjust speed gets completely ignored, and the animation is playing at normal speed, despite us wanting to change the speed of the animation. And here's one thing that I can hypothesize about why this happens. So if we go back to our script, animation track play, essentially what this does is it plays the animation at normal speed, regardless of if you change the speed of the animation track. So if we hit play, then it's going to start initially at the normal speed. So in order to change the speed of the track that's currently being played, we have to adjust the speed after we play the animation. And that's my hypothesis on it. I don't know if that's true, but it seems to make sense if that is the case. So that is one thing I do want to mention when it comes to adjusting speed of the animation, because I've had this issue many times in the past, and this has confused a lot of people. We have the ability to detect when an animation is playing and when an animation is stopping, or those sorts of things. But one thing we don't know is knowing when we've reached a certain point within the animation. So if I were to go back to my animation editor, let's say we were at this point specifically. How can we tell if we reach this point of the animation? What we can do is use what's called a marker to mark this specific frame within the timeline, so that once we play the animation and we reach this point within the animation, then we're going to tell our local scripts to activate an event because we've reached this point in the timeline. So here's how we add a marker. We're basically going to be in the timeline that we want to add this marker in, and we're going to right click and say add animation event here. So we're going to hit this button and it's going to show this window. So what we can do is add an event here by clicking on add event, and it's going to give us 2 boxes, one of them for the event name and the other one for a parameter. So for the event name, what we're going to do is give it a name. So we're probably just going to say like halfway, and then what's interesting is we can add a parameter here, and I'm going to show you what this parameter does, but for right now we can just say something random like parameter 1. It doesn't really matter. Too much. You can even leave this blank if you want, but what we're gonna do is hit save. We can see this little marker placed on this time frame right here. So now what we're gonna do is go and publish this into Roblox again, so that we can have an updated animation when we script it. Okay, so let's go back to our script. So let's drop 2 lines down here, and what we're going to do is we're going to use a function that allows us to detect when we reach a certain point in the timeline to activate an event. So this is
Oh, this is really cool. So like when I finish an event like somewhere, I can like hit something. I can like shoot something out, right? Like if I do this, right? At the end of the event, it will shoot like a fireball or something. So that is what an event for, I think. That's really cool.
what it's gonna look like. We're gonna say animation track get marker reached signal, and what we're gonna do here is say open and close parentheses. And we're going to specify the name of the event, which if you remember, it was event 1. And we're going to connect this by saying connect by creating a function, open close parentheses, and
Of the event?
And in here, we're going to add in our parameters, which if you remember, we did that when we created our marker. So I'm going to hit enter. And so now whatever we do inside of here, it's going to fire after we trigger this event one marker in the animation, ideally when we reach it when we're playing the animation. So for right now, what we can just do is just print out whatever the parameter is inside of here. It's called halfway. I seem to be forgetting things for some reason. Okay, but let's go back into the game and now see the change for ourselves. All right, and as you can see, once we're halfway through our animation, it's being printed out in the output, our parameter that we specified inside of the event when we created it in the animation editor. So it's going to constantly do this because we have the animation loops. If you remember from the timeline, it's basically going to be in the halfway mark to signify that the event has been fired, and it's going to print out our parameters down here. So this is how we can detect when we reach a certain frame in the animation. And I recommend doing it this way because I know there's other ways of doing it, like keyframe reach, but that's generally not recommended when it comes to this. So that is basically how you detect when you reach certain frames within the animation. So for this last part of the video, I want to debunk two very common misconceptions that people have about animations so that you don't go through with these issues. The first one is that it's not possible to access animations that are created by other people directly using their animation within your own game, or if this was an animation that was created within a group that's not being used by that group owner. What I'm trying to get at here is that Roblox has this privacy policy when it comes to sharing animations. If let's say you had a game that was created within a group, if the animations are not created within that group directly, then you can't use the animation in your Roblox game. And if this was a game that was created by a single player, all animations that are used within that game has to be created by the owner. It cannot be, you can't use an animation that was created by other people. So you might think, oh, okay, if I can't use animations created by other people, then I basically just have to create all my animations from scratch. And to that I say, technically, yes, but there are workarounds when it comes to this. So it actually is possible to use animations created by other people if that person created a rig with an animation saved onto it and uploaded it as a model. So I'm going to show you an example of what this looks like. So I'm going to go to the toolbox and I'm going to search up something like Club Penguin Dance. And then there should be this animation right here with this rig. So I'm going to open up this character, and there should be something here called anim saves that basically saved all of the animations that are within this character. But you might notice that this is a keyframe sequence. This is not an animation, something when dance. And then there should be this animation right here with this rig. So I'm going to
The hell is happening? Help! What am I doing? Wait, let me just delete it. Okay. Simple, simple. Nothing's happening. Cannot even move this. Cannot move the whole thing. Like, what? I don't understand. But sure. Cannot control Z this. I don't know why.
to open up this character, and there should be something here called anim saves that basically saved all of the animations that are within this character. But you might notice that this is a keyframe sequence. This is not an animation. So when we open this up, we have all the keyframes within the timeline to have a real animation. It's just now we have to convert this into an animation that we can upload to Roblox. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the animation editor, and I'm going to go and hit the three dots, and I'm going to create a new animation. So I'm going to call
Where the hell is he, man? The hell? What the hell is even my best played at? Where is my spawn location?
this dance one. So go to the animation editor, and I'm going to go and hit the three dots, and I'm going to create a new animation. So I'm going to call this dance one. So from what we see here, we have all the keyframes in this timeline to be able to play the animation. So if I play the animation, then you can see that the Club Penguin dance is being played right here, which is very fascinating. Like this was created by another person. So with this in mind, we have the animation here, and what we can now do is publish this animation to Roblox as if it was our own animation. So this could be
Animation install for storage. The following animation has been found attached to your rig and should either be deleted or migrated new location. Okay. So Alan is gone. But my new rig. What? I don't understand. Huh? Create new? Yeah. Wait. First I import it first. Okay.
this
Wait, I'm
dance
missing
one.
something.
I'm going to go to the animation editor, and I'm going to go and hit the three dots, and I'm going to create a new animation. So I'm going to call this dance one. So from what we see here,
Oh.
we have all the keyframes in this timeline to be able to play the animation. So if I play the animation, then you can see that the Club Penguin dance is being played right here, which is very fascinating. Like this was created by another person. So with this in mind, we have the animation here, and what we can now do is publish this animation to Roblox as if it was our own animation. So this could be our club dance. We're just gonna call this club dance one, and we can now check this off, hit OK, and so now we have our own.
Oh, I forgot to check the thing is off. Then.
Animation. So this could be our club dance. We're just gonna call this club dance one, and we can now check this off, hit OK, and so now we have our own animation that we can play. So we can hit copy, hit close, and what I've decided to do was I've created a local script that basically Fires that basically plays an animation if I decide to hit the R key using user input service. But before I can test this, here's another conflicting issue. If we go to the character, we can see that this guy only has 6 parts if we don't include the humanoid root part. This follows an R6 character model. What we were working with before was following an R15 model. So in order for us to use this animation, we ourselves have to be an R6 character. So we're gonna have to switch over to an R6 model. So I'm gonna go to my avatar and quickly change myself to an R6 character, because if you're an R15 character, you can't use R6 animations, and the same thing works with the other way around. Okay, so I've now loaded into the game using an R6 character, so I only have 6 parts, not 15. If I hit R, then it should be playing the Club Penguin dance animation, because I have successfully been able to take somebody else's animation that's free of use, and I uploaded that myself under my own profile, and I'm now able to use it in my own game. So this was just something I wanted to address when it came to animations, and some misconceptions that may come about when it comes to this, because I was very confused with this stuff in the past. So I want you to be aware of these sort of things when it comes to uploading animations onto Roblox and using other people's animations. But with that being said, we've now reached the end of the video, and if it felt like I went really fast with this video, I apologize, because animating is a whole sector when it comes to game development, and there's a lot of things that go on when it comes to creating animations and uploading them. So this video wasn't an in-depth guide to animating, but at least from what we can say so far from this video, we were introduced to the animation editor, we were able to create our own animations and understand the editor a little bit, and implement them inside of Roblox Studio, and also address some concerns and misconceptions that animations might have when it comes that you might have when it comes to animations if you were to work with these down the line. So with that being said, that's going to be it for this episode. I hope you found this video to be very informative, and I will see you in the next.
Hmm. There is Alan, and Alan is gone. I have district, but district is R15. Climb, cheer, dance. I'll try. This is the what is that animation? Oh yeah, that's animation. So can I like do this? I don't need more Alan. Um, let's make animation one. Put rig. No, not to the rig. To the starter player, the local script. And I play the animation one. Hey bro. Okay, so this is just like I didn't learn to animate anything, but this is more like an introduction to the animation editor. Now I know what this is. I can use it well. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Like I'm gonna use this well. I can have another animation. I can get animation from another person. Then I can use it on my thingies. Yeah, I think I understand it now. Okay, I'm gonna rest for a while. If I will continue, I mean, if I'm going to continue, I'll continue later on. So I'll see you guys later, okay? If there is a later. Bye bye.